So, you are thinking of getting a Rover 75 as a modern classic, with the aim of using it as a daily, but not sure what to expect or to look out for. Well, fear not. Here's a simple buyer's guide to things to look out for on the Rover 75 from 1998 to 2005. So before we go into the buyer's guide, let's have a wee bit of history on the Rover 75. So in 1993, Richard Woolley had been working on 3 models to replace the Rover 800 and 600. The first one was called Flagship or Flash Pig, which would replace the Rover 800. The second one was called Eric, which would replace the 800 Coupe. And lastly, there was a third model called Core, which would replace the still fresh looking 600 at the time, which was based on Honda Accord. But the cost to develop the 2 cars were dropped, and Core became Isis. Isis would replace the 2 models, Eric and Flagship. The Isis concept was shown to BMW and Rover management, and BMW gave the nod, and the project became RD1. The early clay model of RD1, when presented to the management at Rover and BMW, made such a lasting impression that there was no need to tinker with the styling. The R40, or RD1, was planned to be unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show in spring 1999, but instead it was unveiled at the British Motor Show in autumn 1998. So the first thing to think about when buying a Rover 75 is what body style you would like. Would you like the saloon version or the tourer? Trim levels. The next thing to consider when looking for a 75 is what trim level you would like. So you have Classic, Connoisseur, Connoisseur SE, which is this model, Contemporary, or Contemporary SE. Engine choices. There was 6 engine choices available in the Rover 75. So you have the 1.8 K series producing 115 horsepower. You also had a turbocharged K series 1.8 which produced 150 brake horsepower. You had a choice of 2 V6s. You had a 2 litre KV6 which produced 150 brake horsepower. This was also found in the Rover 45. And then you have the 2.5 KV6 which produced 177 brake horsepower. There was also the 2 litre diesel M47R which produced either 116 brake horsepower or 131 brake horsepower like this model. Later in 75 production, you also had the option of the 4.6 V8 Mustang engine, which produced 265 brake horsepower. Transmission-wise, you had a choice of 5-speed manual gearbox or a 5-speed jack-toe automatic. Servicing intervals on these engines. Rover recommend 15,000 miles or 1 year. Now, from what I've read and what I've heard about K-series engines, the advice for a K-series engine is to maybe half the miles on that. So maybe every 6,000 to 7,000 miles get the K-series engine serviced. And we'll go into that a little bit later on. Why we should consider servicing a K-series engine at half the mileage. So, you've decided on the body style you want. Now do you want an earlier car or do you want a facelift car? So this is a facelift car. This came in 2004, I believe. Earlier cars were from about 1998 to 2004. And what's the main differences? The main differences really are the front end doesn't look as classy as the Mark 1 75. It looks a bit more Euro looking, as some people put it. If it was myself, I would have preferred a pre-facelift model, the original version of the 75. Another thing to consider when looking at a 75 is where the car was produced. Earlier 75s were produced at Cowley in Oxford, where the Mini factory is. This was set up initially so that BMW could get up to speed when they were going to be producing the Mini. And the way to identify if it's a Cowley car is the sills. Cowley cars should have black sills on them. Longbridge cars will be body coloured. A Project Drive or a non-Project Drive 75. Project Drive was a cost-cutting exercise to save money on the production of cars. It happens in most manufacturers, but Rover seems to fare more than any others. Examples on a 75 include the leather handbrake grip was replaced with a plastic version. The leather gear knob on classic and club models was replaced with a plastic gear lever. Another example of cost cutting was the Rover Viking ship, which would be on the boot lid, just above the plinth, was removed. Down on the door, the torpedo badges telling you which engine choice your car had was also removed as part of Project Drive. Another example of Project Drive was the driver's grab handle was removed and replaced with two blanking plugs, which doesn't make any sense as all the other doors of the car have a handle above it. What are the common issues that go wrong on a Rover 75? One of the first common problems on the 75 is the rear light seals. The rubber gasket behind the rear light seals can over age will start to perish and it will start to let in water. This in turn will flood your boot and maybe create a swimming pool where the spare wheel would be. Rubber gaskets are reasonably cheap to get, and it's quite solid, quite an effective way of fixing the rear light seal issue. Another issue on the 75 is this area. This is the plenums under the scuttle panel. This is another common issue where if you don't clear the plenums, like if leaves gather and dirt gathers moss, then what happens is the water that's meant to drain away when it's been raining won't drain away and just sort of sits in the plenum chamber. So what to do is just remove the trim piece on the scuttle and just have a look down into the chamber below here. Now I've checked this recently and we've got no issues of water, but if you can, grab a torch and just inspect the full length. If there's any pools of water, then you'll have to get the drain hole cleared, because there's a few issues that this will cause. Firstly is that the ECU is on the passenger side of the chamber. Also, the cabin filter is also there as well, so you're going to have a flooded ECU and a flooded cabin filter. Not only that, you'll also have possibly a flooded footwell. The carpets will be absolutely wringing wet, and underneath the glove box is the body control unit. That could also get flooded as well. So that is probably the most important check to do on your 75 if you're looking at one. If you've purchased one, is to ensure that the plenum chambers are cleared or checked every week, just to see if there's any dirt, moss, leaves in the chambers. Especially if you're parked under trees where you live. But it's worthwhile just doing a weekly check on the chambers. Another issue to consider is if your car has a sunroof. Now, like the plenum chambers, the sunroofs sometimes gets dirt jammed in the drain plugs, and this will result in sopping carpets in the passenger footwell. Now, when I bought this example, it was clear that the sunroof drains hadn't been checked, because underneath here was a pool of water. Now, I'm just going to pull this out. And what you want to do is you just want to get under the carpet, just under the seat here where the heating duct is, and just see if there's any signs of pool of water. In this case, it's all clear. That is another important check as well. Otherwise, you're going to have sopping carpets and the smell will be atrocious. Going on to common issues with the engines. Starting off with the K-Series, is that the head gasket will rear its ugly head again, and that is common in all K-Series engines. And from what I've heard and from what I've read, as long as you regularly service your K-Series engine every 6,000–7,000 miles, these engines will go on and on and on. I would say it's maybe due to neglect that the head gaskets can fail on these cars. On the diesels, your PCV valve is advised to be changed every 30,000 miles. And again, this is often overlooked. And this basically clogs up, causing blue smoke and oil to come out the dipstick tube. Now, for £17 for a new PCV valve to get a new filter, I think it's worth getting that. What else can go wrong on the 75? Another common issue on the 75 is this little thing. This is the bonnet switch. Now, what happens here is sometimes they can get a little bit wet, and especially in the icy weather, they can freeze, and for some reason it can set the car alarm off. I've experienced this myself. When I was away for a weekend away, I got woken up by the car alarm going off in the hotel car park. A simple way to stop that alarm is to pull out the central locking fuse and the alarm sounder fuse. You can get a new bonnet switch. I think they're also very cheap as well to get and to replace. So that's just a common issue. That's another little common issue. Thankfully, I've not had any issues with this bonnet switch since I've reconnected everything back up. But if your car alarm's going off and there's no rhyme and reason for it, then it could be your bonnet switch. Another little common issue is sometimes the boot, when it opens, might not latch shut again. Simple solution here, especially in the frozen weather, in the winter, is to adjust these wee rubber boots. Just turn them one way, try and level them off on either side of the boot lid, and this will solve that problem. Another little issue you may have is the airbag light. If that doesn't go out, then all that is that there is an issue with the connector under the seat. Another common issue with the 75 in the inside of the car is the instrument display. So you've got your miles here, your total mileage and your temperature gauge. And it's the screen in the middle here, which is your IP K screen or IDK screen. As you can see, the right in its IP distance too. Range. And you can sort of see it's sort of pixelated a wee bit. This is quite common, they tend to go. You can get a replacement IPK or IKD screen from one of the Rover specialists. I'll see if I can find a description of who would supply that. Be able to fix these screens or supply you with a new one. But that's quite common for them to go as well. Another common thing on the 75 is the stereos tend to go. So I've replaced this with a aftermarket Sony stereo. And that's really about all that I can think of in the interior. Another thing to consider when looking at a 75 is this is also quite a common problem, especially in the rear, is that the headlining tends to sag. So I've just put a couple of pins in mine just at the end here. As you can see, there's a little yellow pinhead in there. Again, you can probably get these from the likes of Rimmer Brothers, discounted MGA Rover spares. And apparently some people have actually been going on Amazon and getting material as well. So it might be worthwhile just having a wee look on Amazon to see if you can maybe get something cheaper. Yeah, so that's another common problem on the 75. Cam belt changes on the Rover 75. So the car you're potentially looking at, or the car you have, here's the information you need to know. If you have a 2-litre CDTI or looking at one, this is a chain-driven engine, so as long as the oil and filters are changed every 10,000 miles or yearly, there shouldn't be an issue with that. The 1.8K series, 90,000 miles or every 6 years. Rover forums suggest every 70,000 or 5 years. For KV6s, the 2-litre and 2.5, it's 6 years or 90,000 miles. And also, just factor in the cost that on the KV6 engines, there is 3 belts to change. And you're looking at roughly a cost of £500 to replace all these belts. 4.6 V8, time and chain again. If regularly serviced, then there shouldn't be an issue with that. Prices. So I've taken these from Auto Trader from the 9th of January 2022. The cheapest Rover 75 I found was £990 for a 2002 Diesel Connoisseur SE. And I'll just put up the pictures of that car now. The most expensive and probably the best example of 75 for the price of £6,000 was for a 1.8 turbo connoisseur. And I'll just put some pictures up now. It's an old Rover. Can I still get parts? Well, yes you can. And what I'll do is I'll put details of the companies in the description. But here's a few for you now. We've got ones that I can recommend are Rimmer Brothers or DGMRS, Discount MG Rover Spares. Is there an owners club for the Rover 75? Yes, there's still a strong following for the 75. There's dedicated forums, one being the Rover 75 and MG ZT Owners Club. There's also a plethora of Facebook groups as well. One of the ones that I use is Rover 75 Addicts, MG Rover Enthusiasts, and the Rover 75 and MG ZT Appreciation Society. So, there you go. That's just a little buying guide, common issues, and what to look out for if you're looking to purchase a Rover 75. It's one of these cars that is becoming a classic in its own right. It's a modern classic. It's also the last Rover, if you exclude the City Rover. It's still a fresh looking car even to today. And I think if you get in the right colour as well, it really stands out. I'd just like to thank you for watching this video on this buying guide for the Rover 75. There's probably things I've missed. If there is, you can add them into the comments below. I've only just got into Rover ownership myself in the last 4 months, so it's still a learning experience for me. But I just thought I'd point out some of the common issues that you get on the 75. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe at Scottish Car Enthusiasts and Trains TV for more rovering escapades and rovering adventures, rover tinkering, and we're maybe possibly looking to start on a new series soon. I'm not going to reveal that at the minute. It's still in the planning stages. But there you go, that's the Rover 75. A quick buyer's guide for you. And all I can say is this car still looks beautiful today. When it rolled off the production line in 2004.